From fueling India to building our cityscapes, Mr. Puri fulfills a tall order. May I request you all to please settle down? A former diplomat, Mr. Puri has been at the forefront of bringing sustainability to the core logic of India's urban affairs. This image of him reviewing the new Parliament building sometime last October is a piece of history in the making as the nation eagerly awaits the shift to the new Parliament building. Mr. Hardeep Puri's vision for India's transformation is going to direct how we live and how we move. May I invite the Union Minister for Housing and Urban Affairs and Petroleum and Natural Gas, Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri, for a conversation on fueling dreams with senior anchor and senior editor Deepthi Sachdev and Republic Bharat's senior anchor Syed Suhail. Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. Deepthi and Suhail, it's over to you.
Let's settle down, guys, please. I think really one little thing about Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri, he's also the longest serving Urban Affairs and Development Minister. Let's have a huge round of applause for him. So, at the door, please, can we all be seated? I'm requesting all of you to be please seated. The minister is waiting. Let's begin. Yes? Thank you. Mr. Puri, sir, there's so much to ask you, but because obviously we are building up to a huge and a fascinating election season, I will take the liberty to directly plunge into politics before we touch, your core areas, your core strength areas. In the run-up to 2024, what do you believe are the current government's biggest challenges?
If you are expecting me to define challenges in terms of the dynamics of opposition party unity or a possible challenge coming from the political opposition, then I'm afraid I don't have much to add to what would already be known. So I'll put that aside. I think the greatest achievement of the Modi government has been that he has been able to define good governance in terms of good politics. Now, I've been around for a long time. I don't mind throwing that figure at you. I've been in some form of employment for the last 50 years. And I've had the privilege of working not at such close quarters, but different degrees of proximity with earlier prime ministers also. I was a young undersecretary when Mrs. Gandhi was the prime minister. I worked as a joint secretary when Mr. Narasimha Rao was prime minister. I had a privileged working relationship when Vajpayee ji was the prime minister. But I can tell you, of all the prime ministers I've seen, we've never had anyone like Mr. Narendra Modi. And I come back to one basic point. Here is a man, when he became prime minister, he had already put in 12 years as a hands-on chief minister of a state which faced many challenges and which witnessed economic progress in the real sense of the term. And in the last 8-9 years, he has demonstrated, and I'm not going to reel off those statistics. I was watching my friend and collaborator Amitav reel off some statistics. I can reel off statistics in my two core ministries that I'm associated with. But here is a person who, and your theme is transformation. I look at transformation in terms of something very basic. What did you inherit? And what are you going to bequeath? That, I think, is the paribhasha of transformation. And I can tell you what we saw in 1947, what we saw in 2014, and what we see in 2023. And that is going to be what will be addressed by the Indian electorate in 2024. And I think that is what will be annotated, that is what will be discussed, and I don't think there's any political opposition in terms of groupings or parties which has even a nodding acquaintance with the level of progress and the intensity of progress that the country is registering today.
Okay. Now, Mr. Puri, there's a reason why I asked you about those challenges. You've spoken about a lot of internal challenges, but I'm sure a lot of people must have seen that interview of Hardeep Singh Puri that actually went viral a few days ago. Now, he was asked by the foreign media about whether India had any qualms over purchasing so much oil from Russia, and this is how Minister responded. He says, and I quote him now, "Absolutely none. There is no moral conflict. It's the oil companies who do the buying," unquote. So do you believe, Minister, that there is an attempt right now to guilt trip India?
To?
Guilt trip India. And you actually took them to the cleaners with the kind of response you put out. Is that also a part of the challenge that India is dealing with in the run-up to 2024?
You know, when I was much younger, and that was a long time ago, something I learned from a boss of mine, we asked him, "Sir, are you feeling the pressure?" He says, "My mind is not wired to feel the pressure." And I think that's the Modi mind. I mean, how can you guilt trip India? I mean, we are the world's largest democracy. We are a civilizational democracy. We are the oldest democracy. Our GDP was contributing 25% to global GDP before the advent of our colonial association with a particular country, which we overtook to become the fifth largest economy. We, as a result of that 190-year-old association, we dropped to 2 or 3% GDP. Today we are rising, and I think with a $3.8 trillion GDP, we are likely to become from the fifth to the third largest economy even before 2030. Now, who is going to guilt trip whom? Somebody who was buying more oil in one afternoon than we were buying in a quarter? I think the time to take India for granted or to try and somehow make you feel as if you're doing that something which is not right. I said during the course of that interview that as a democratically elected government, we are answerable only to the Indian consumer. So if you have oil in your backyard, we will buy it. We were buying oil earlier, crude oil from 27 sources. We are buying it now from 39 countries. We are desperately and vigorously enhancing our exploration and production. We are doing the transition to green energy. And by the way, our rate of growth in consumption is 3 times the global average. So we have something called a market, and we are happily playing the market card. If you want to sell me oil cheaper, we'll buy from you. And that, I mean, you as a potential supplier. So I think that interview, I don't know why you said it went viral, because I've been saying the same thing in all my interactions with your esteemed channel, with my friend Arnab or anyone. I think India arrived on the scene some time ago. Let's not overstate as if we've just come. But today, as we navigate the G20 presidency for the next 100 events and then ultimately the summit event, the fact is India matters more to the world today, and if I may submit, the world also matters more to India. So to be able to guilt trip someone, you're not a teenager who stayed out at night and had 1 drink extra that you need to guilt trip. I mean, we're a country of, 1.4 billion people, a booming economy, self-confidence, resolute political leadership, no more policy paralysis, no more, fudging, appeasement, etc. And I think that's the name of the game. And I think the Prime Minister, more than anyone else, embodies in his personality and his interaction with heads of state and government, and that permeates down the political leadership. I don't think the cabinet is a political leadership, but I mean his colleagues in the Council of Ministers. Yeah.
लेकिन सर देश ने ये भी देखा कि हमारा दुश्मन भी हमारी तारीफ कर रहा था। पाकिस्तान में इमरान खान तारीफ कर रहे हैं, पाकिस्तान के मंत्री तारीफ कर रहे हैं जो भारत सरकार ने फैसला लिया। हमारे देश में विरोधियों के पास कोई ऑप्शन नहीं बचा। जो पहले कह रहे थे आप अमेरिका के आगे सरेंडर कर रहे हैं, वो अब चुप थे क्योंकि अमेरिका के दबाव में आप नहीं झुक रहे हैं। जो पहले कह रहे थे कि आप रशिया से दोस्ती कम कर रहे हैं, वो देख रहे हैं आप उनसे ऑयल खरीद रहे हैं। तो मेरा सवाल आपसे ये कि सर ये कैसे हुआ? क्योंकि ये इसने पूरे देश को फक्र भी महसूस करवाया है कि हम किसी यूरोपियन कंट्री के आगे और अमेरिका के आगे हमने सरेंडर नहीं किया।
देखिए, इंटरस्टेट रिलेशनशिप्स जो होती हैं, जब ये एग्जिस्टिंग मल्टीलैटरल सिस्टम एस्टैब्लिश्ड हुआ, इस समय संयुक्त राष्ट्र यूनाइटेड नेशंस में 193 कंट्रीज हैं। प्रिंसिपल जो है वहां पर इट्स वन कंट्री वन वोट, पर उसकी डिजाइन और स्ट्रक्चर में भी थोड़ी सी इनइक्वालिटी जो है इट्स बिल्ट इन। जो सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल है, विच इज द ओनली डेजिग्नेटेड agency to determine whether there's a threat to international peace and security and then authorize countermeasures, that is the use of force and military force. Oh, usme there are 5 more equal than others, therefore 5 permanent members. देखिए, जिस तरीके से दुनिया में बदलाव आ रहा है and India is steadily rising as an independent country to make its voice heard, you are able to do heavy lifting. What is that heavy lifting? अगर सुनामी होता है, मैं इस सरकार की नहीं पहली की बात कर रहा था, you are able to provide relief and rehabilitation and rescue mission. आप देखिए, जब से 2014 में जब भी there have been situations or warlike situations anywhere in the world, you've had a situation where the country gets together, whether it's Operation Ganga, now Operation Kaveri, you are able to do these things. आपके जो बगल वाले देशों की आप क्यों बात करते हैं? जब ऑपरेशन गंगा माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने ऑर्गेनाइज की, एंड आई हैड द प्रिविलेज टू बी वन ऑफ द 4 मिनिस्टर्स देयर, वी वर द ओनली कंट्री इन द वर्ल्ड व्हिच वाज इवैक्यूएटिंग इंडियन स्टूडेंट्स स्ट्रैंडेड इन यूक्रेन. Not only we brought back children from our neighboring countries, but even the so-called highly advanced industrial democracies were not doing it. जो बगल वाले देश की बात कर रहे हैं, मैं उसके बारे में बता दूं. देखिए, I have always used extremely cautious vocabulary when I describe the situation in that country. Matter of great regret, something to be condemned. They have used terror as an instrument of policy, and we've been the victims. But at the same time, they are in free fall. By free fall means unsustainable levels of economic debt, desperate shortage of energy. They have to close their electricity at 8 o'clock in the evening. Why that? Other countries in the neighborhood. We've given $4 billion in terms of some form of assistance to another countries toward the south of India. We should be worried whenever our neighborhood is destabilized. There is one reaction which I have as a proud Indian and as a BJP karyakarta when I see problems somewhere, saying serves them right. But at the same time, the rational part of me which says, my God, tomorrow if that country were to collapse, given the friction that they have with the state of Afghanistan, where they nurtured the Taliban, the Pakistanis are not going to go in that direction. If Pakistan collapses totally, you have a real fear of people coming in this direction. Okay? But the world acknowledges the difficulties. But now I come back to some of our worthies, जो हमारे विरोधी दल है, जिनकी आपने जिक्र किया. I was trying to avoid making a political statement. दुनिया कह रही है कि जो हिंदुस्तान में, भारत में हो रहा है, it's a matter of great joy in terms of whatever you're doing to produce global public goods, your digital, fintech, the whole range. But हमारे लोग जो कह रहे हैं कि यहाँ पे किसी चीज की डेफिसिट है, एक चीज की डेफिसिट है, some of these leaders की अकल की डेफिसिट है. And that is something I think which is now being shown up in abundant measure.
कुछ स्पेसिफिक नाम?
देखिए मैं कौन होता हूं, अब मैं जब कभी सोशल मीडिया करता हूं तो कुछ क्लिप्स वहां पे वायरल होते हैं, कमेंट एक लाइन क्या आता है, आपको समझ आई है क्या कह रहे हैं? सो आई मीन इट्स अ वेरी क्लियर whom आई एम रेफरिंग टू.
सर लेकिन आपके पास कोई बैकअप प्लान्स है वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज का अगर और प्रेशर बढ़ता है? आपको मैंने कहीं सुना कि आपने कहा हमारे पास बैकअप प्लान्स हैं.
बैकअप प्लान किस लिए?
फॉर पेट्रोलियम.
नहीं, देखिए ऐसा है. मैं आपको थोड़ी बेसिक अरिथमेटिक बता दूं. दुनिया में इस समय टोटल प्रोडक्शन एंड डिमांड, rather let me start with consumption of crude oil is 100 million barrels a day, जिसमें इंडिया में जो कंजम्पशन पर डे है 5 मिलियन बैरल्स अ डे. हमारी ग्रोथ जो है ग्लोबल एवरेज से 3 गुना है, और मैं समझता हूं आने वाले समय में हमारी जो कंजम्पशन होगी 5 मिलियन से 6 मिलियन जाएगी, 6 से 6.5 मिलियन जाएगी. सवाल इज देयर इनफ ऑयल इन द वर्ल्ड? द आंसर इज यस, देयर इज इनफ क्रूड ऑयल इन द वर्ल्ड. देयर इज नो इशू ऑन दैट. आई हैव सम ऑफ माय फ्रेंड्स सिटिंग हियर. They will produce more from domestic fields. I have other countries which are now bringing more on. They will do that. We have to manage the long-term supply, the contracting, and we have to diversify our sources. So pressure नाम की कोई चीज नहीं है. मैं आपको बताता हूं, अगर हम उसी जिस एक देश का आप सोच रहे हैं, अगर हम उनसे कच्चा तेल लेना बंद कर दें तो हमें बाकी सोर्सेस से लेना पड़ेगा. हम बाकियों से सोर्स लेंगे तो दाम जो आज क्या $81-82 पर बैरल है वो उठ के $120 चला जाएगा. सो इन सम रिस्पेक्ट्स, लेट मी नॉट overstate it, our buying from that particular source actually helps the West also.
Interesting. I think that's an interesting statement that you make. That more than what India needs, it's also what the world needs from India, and that's exactly how a relationship like that works. Now, when you talk of petroleum, Minister, there's a lot of data, a lot of other things, and this is an audience in anticipation. I think every time we have you there, people want to know whether petroleum will also come under the GST. Will that ever happen? I mean, could there be a drastic change? Could the government be doing that anytime soon?
So I think the legitimate issue is, how do you bring prices at the retail bunk down? I think that's the starting point of any analysis. I think I would like to answer that in the following way. Number one, the fact that we have not allowed prices to go up since I think April of 2022 is in and of itself an achievement. There's been no shortage of energy at any of our retail points. We are currently addressing the trilemma of availability, affordability, and sustainability, the green transition. So we've not allowed prices to go up. In between, this was made possible because the Honorable Prime Minister decided on 2 occasions, November 2021 and May 2022, to bring the excise charge down, and the BJP-ruled states brought the VAT down. That helped. Plus, our OMCs took a hit. Look, I'm very frank. Imports take place both in the private sector and they take place in the public sector OMCs. In our case, I think the private sector share is about 43% or so, and the public sector is 57%, the OMCs. The private sector did not take a hit for whatever reasons. We had to step in and impose export this thing, windfall tax, etc. Something that I can tell you, I'm very reluctant, I want to remove it, but it happened. It happened because, and windfall taxes were imposed the world over, not just in India. Now, the second question is, can we hope now that the global prices are relatively stable? Can we hope to bring the prices down? Let me answer that question absolutely, truthfully upfront. I would like to. But there's no accounting for the fact recently OPEC decided to cut production by what, 1.6 million barrels a day. Now, if you cut the production and the amount of energy available is less, prices tend to shoot up. So far, the market has absorbed it. But there's another point. Can you do it through your domestic arrangements, GST? Now, that is your answer. That's why I'm going to come. Look, I think we have on more occasions than one, the Honorable Finance Minister said we are willing to bring it under the GST, but the GST management structure is such that all states have to be on board. So at one stage, I think there was a meeting of the GST Council in Lucknow, I think last year, when at the directions of the Kerala High Court, if I remember correctly, we put it on the agenda of the GST Council and the result was exactly as we anticipated. Look, daru, that is booze, and petrol, diesel, these are major sources of revenue for most states. What pains me is that some state governments choose to prioritize not in terms of public health and public good, but in other means. But I think as we go along, we have to make sure that there is availability. Affordability remains within a range, and God helping, I mean, gas, I'm hoping that the increasing quantities of gas which are coming on, our production went up 18% last year, 18% this year. I'm hoping it'll go up even further. Gas prices, summer also comes down. Hopefully, we've been able to do some very good gas pricing for CNG and PNG. Prices have come down by 10%. So I would say, fingers crossed, we look at all these challenges cautiously, but with optimism.
Okay, before I let Sohail take the next question, because you're also the housing minister. Now, why is it that, Mr. Puri, that everything that you're building, everything that you want to transform, you have certain people attacking you left, right, and center, whether it's the Kartavya Path, whether it's the parliament. They say, why are you doing this? You know, why are you tinkering with our heritage? Why are you playing with the sentiments of the people? You have this mission of urban renewal. Are you really doing that? The Congress says, suspend the Central Vista project. Jairam Ramesh has called the parliament a colossal waste of money. The line capital, that is, the statute of the new parliament is called a brazen insult to India's national symbol. So if you say you're doing such good work, why are they attacking you like this?
No, first of all, I am not saying that I am doing such good work. I think the work which is being done speaks for itself, number one. Number two, many of these statements which are quoting are, I think, also time contextly wrong. They were asking for work on the Kartavya Path in the parliament to be stopped during the COVID. And they said, not enough money will not be left for COVID. So these are old statements, number one. And the same Mr. Jairam Ramesh whom you quote, by the way, in discussions like this, I never quote anybody by name, but the same gentleman, since you've quoted him, said long back, he had gone to some place and said, what an awful parliament we have, we need a bigger building. And then when you had Mrs. Meera Kumar as the speaker, her secretary actually wrote to the secretary in my ministry much before my arrival to say that we needed a new parliament. So I don't think there's any discussion now on Kartavya Path. Kartavya Path has been accepted by the people. We have a footfall there over the weekends of 1.5 lakh, even on normal days 50,000-60,000 people, and everybody loves it. There was in between a group of 106 civil servants whom I was a little harsh with in a press conference. They had said कि यहाँ पे ग्रीन कवर कम हो जाएगा, यहाँ पे वो जामुन के जो पेड़ लगे हुए हैं,
नहीं, आपने जामुन के पेड़ भी कटवा दिए उन्होंने।
हाँ, उन्होंने कहा था, तो मैं उनको ले गया वहाँ पे जामुन के पेड़ के नीचे खड़ा करवा के, और प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में मैंने कहा, मूर्ख 3 किस्म के होते हैं, साधारण विच इज ऑर्डिनरी, असाधारण विच इज एक्स्ट्रा ऑर्डिनरी, और तीसरा होता है चक्रवर्ती क्लास। तो मैंने कहा ये 106 चक्रवर्ती क्लास लोग हैं जिन्होंने कैबिनेट सेक्रेटरी बने हैं, फॉरेन सेक्रेटरी बने हैं, उनमें से एक ने भी कहीं गैस प्राइसिंग पे भी लिखी है। देखिए, जिस चीज की समझ हो उस पर टिप्पणी देनी बनती है, पर अगर आप समझने की कोशिश नहीं कर रहे हैं, अब एक पेड़ नहीं उखड़ा वहां से। अच्छा, उन्होंने एक और बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग चीज कही, उन्होंने कहा कि ये नई पार्लियामेंट बिल्डिंग इसलिए बनाई जा रही है क्योंकि जो पुरानी पार्लियामेंट बिल्डिंग थी वो लगता था जिंक्स्ड है, सो वी नीडेड अ न्यू बिल्डिंग। अरे भाई, पुरानी बिल्डिंग 1916 में शुरू हुई थी, और वो 1916 के बाद दिल्ली इज इन अ डिफरेंट सेस्मिक जोन। दूसरा, यहाँ पे डिलिमिटेशन की वो लिमिटेशन खत्म होने वाली है 2026 में। पार्लियामेंट की जो स्ट्रेंथ होगी वो 500-600 नहीं होगी, उसके बाद 800-900 होगी। वैसे ही 600 लोग नहीं बिठाए जाते लोकसभा में, और मेरे जैसे जो हैं थोड़े से हमारा गोडा जो है वो लगता है आ गए। सो Parliament new building has to be built because you are building for the next 200 years. So I don't think these criticisms merit even attention by a mediocre undergraduate student. So I'm not describing those who have made these statements, but for you as a respectable anchor in a distinguished audience like this to raise, you are giving me a ball has been lobbed, now you have the bat in the hand, maro ispe six. So
Let's see what you strike. You obviously struck a 6, I think, with the kind of response you're seeing in the audience. But it's important, it's rare that we get an occasion to have the minister right here in front of us. So obviously there has been a lot of backlog of good questions.
Don't say that occasion. You only get these occasions
Yes.
seldom. I mean, your boss Arnav is an old friend of mine.
Yes,
जब
he's
कहेगा
there,
मैं आ
he's
जाऊंगा.
waiting to you.
जब कहेगा मैं आने को तैयार होता हूँ.
Okay, so he's not
you.
complaining, he's saying, जब बुलाएंगे आ जाएंगे. That's what he says. So,
थैंक यू सर, बहुत अच्छा लगा सर आपसे बात करके, और आपको सुनने के लिए सब देख रहे हैं, लंच के बाद आए थे और सब आपको सुनने के लिए बैठ गए।
देखिए इसमें दो चीजें होती हैं। मैं आई स्पेंड 39 इयर्स इन डिप्लोमेसी। लंच के पहले वाला जो सेशन होता है उसमें प्रॉब्लम होती है, अगर आपने बहुत जल्दी शुरू किया और स्नैक्स नहीं हुआ तो जल्दी खाने के लिए जाने पड़ते हैं। लंच के बाद वाला सेशन कैन ऑल्सो बी प्रॉब्लमैटिक बिकॉज इफ यू हैव द गुड लंच then they'll be yawning because they're this thing. So I hope I was able to navigate through that.
Credit goes to you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Puri, Deepthi, and Suhail, for that insightful conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, may I request you all to please be seated. We've got our next speaker. And the Minister for Minority Affairs, Ms. Smriti Zubin Irani, in the hall. She scripted history as India's youngest Union Cabinet Minister in the government. She's broken the glass ceiling in politics, triumphed in bastions where dynastic politics had taken hold, and played a transformative role in every portfolio that she has held. As the Minister for Women and Child Development, she's put the focus on women's leadership at the grassroots and female enterprise. As Minority Affairs Minister, she's been at the forefront of ensuring welfare schemes to uplift all minority communities. May I request you all to please be seated. We've got the Union Minister, Ms. Smriti Irani, in conversation on the Minority Report with the Editor-in-Chief, Arnab Goswami. Ladies and gentlemen, please settle down.
Thank you so much. Thank you. A session all of us have been looking forward to for a long time, and it's a pleasure, privilege to always have you on our